Welcome to the Plant Trainers Podcast, where we're helping people improve their quality of life through nutrition and fitness. And now, your hosts, nutrition and wellness coaches, international speakers, Adam and Shoshana Chaim.
Hey, I'm Adam Chaim.
And I'm Shoshana Chaim, and we are Propelled by Plants.
Today we bring to you episode 435, The Impact of Lifestyle on Cancer with Tom Fisher.
In this episode of the Plant Trainers Podcast, we talk with Tom Fisher all about the impact of lifestyle on cancer. Tom is a fountain of information when it comes to cancer and lifestyle. We felt like the conversation could have really gone on forever, but he shared his health journey with us with cancer, and then we talked a lot about certain nutrients to eat and supplements to take and how they affect the body. We dove into sugar, alkalinity, and other lifestyle factors that can really affect the cancer growth in the body.
Tom is a registered nurse and also a highly experienced health coach with over 16,000 clinical hours of working one-on-one with people with various health challenges. Tom's a certified health educator and stage 4 cancer survivor, now over 21 years cancer-free. So awesome. He's currently developing content and health protocols for the Cancer Coach organization. Tom studied under some of the top integrative medical practitioners in the world. He lectured throughout the U.S. on health and nutrition. He's a health optimization coaching academy instructor. Tom has a unique background in health, having worked with patients in allopathic and integrative medicine and having been through the medical system as a patient with cancer. Such a fascinating conversation, so many great tips and tricks in this one. You're going to want to share it. Enjoy the show. If you want a healthy, natural way to fuel your workouts or fire up your brain, Energy Bits are for you. Energy Bits are tiny spirulina algae tabs that are nutritionally dense, a source of mental and physical energy that is all natural and causes no stomach distress. They eliminate fatigue and hunger instantly with no caffeine, sugar, chemicals, gluten, or soy, just pure plant-based nutrition. 1 ingredient, 1 calorie, and 0 net carbs. I use them before workouts or sometimes just as a snack. They make me feel great and give me that extra energy boost I'm sometimes looking for. I also use Recovery Bits, which are tiny chlorella tabs. I use them after workouts or when I'm feeling hungry late at night. Visit energybits.com and order Energy Bits, Recovery Bits, Vitality Bits, or Skinny Bits, and use the promo code PLANTTRAINERS to get 20% off your order at checkout. The link will also be in the show notes just in case you didn't get that all down. Improve your energy, wellness, and waistline all at the same time with Energy Bits. Check out Energy Bits today and feel the difference. Your brain and body will say thank you. And now for a moment of gratitude.
I am grateful that we had the tools that we needed to get through our COVID all right. We dealt with each symptom at a time and we were comfortable throughout it, and it was really the best case scenario. And although we had been with my grandmother, she did not get it. So I'm super grateful for that. She's 99.
Yeah, I'm grateful that we all ended up getting COVID together as a family, and it really simplified things that we were together.
We were a family experience.
It wasn't ideal, but you know what? The way things are going, most people are going to end up getting it, and I'm just grateful that we did, and the symptoms were super mild, and we got through it.
Nurse Tom, thank you so much for joining us on the Plant Trainers Podcast today.
Great to be here. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. We met you through Jennifer Helene, who was a guest just a while ago on the Plant Trainers Podcast, and she could not stop raving about your brain. And you said, we need to have a brain like this on the Plant Trainers Podcast.
Thank you. Well, great to be here, and look forward to supporting and helping people on your podcast.
That's what it is all about. And before we talk about those things, we would love to know if you have a moment of gratitude to share with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very grateful for my wife, Zainab. She supported me throughout my health journey and even till today. Been together for a long time, and my family and also friends as well. So very grateful for them.
Yeah, we can't get to where we need to be without the support of our loved ones who really get us through those tough times.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
And for some people, that's the missing piece in their health. Sometimes they're doing everything right, but they don't feel supported by their loved ones, and they don't have a community that's cheering them on for the choices that they're making towards their health. And that mental health aspect manifests so deeply physically that sometimes it's that missing piece for helping people get to where they need to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Two very powerful words are gratitude and love. And, that's even seen in things like Dr. Moto's work with water, and even using water and using those words on the water, the actual structure of the water itself would change. And it's really interesting, but kind of a fascinating study that they've done with that. But yeah.
So off topic from where we want to go, but there's never an off topic, I guess. So we have these little rocks that I don't even know where we bought them, and they all have like power words on them: love and inspiration and empathy and all of that. So I took the little love rock and I put it in the bottom of our Berkey because I wanted to instill the love into the water. But then when I washed the Berkey the next time, I actually found that it got a little bit slimy, and I think it may have not been the smartest idea. But now I keep that rock just under the Berkey because it's raised. So I keep it just under the Berkey. And as I'm filling the water, I'm kind of like looking at it and thinking about it and putting more love. Do you feel more love? I've been putting more love into our water.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if you taped it on the actual container itself, that should also be able to, do that same thing.
Oh, or I could just put it on top, like over the lid. Well, there you go. Thank you. I think that's smarter. Thank you so much, Nurse Tom.
Absolutely.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you found the plant-based lifestyle and how that was incorporated into your own health journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I found it a little bit through the school of hard knocks, people might call it. I originally grew up in Philadelphia in a city of brotherly love. And there, I originally learned about, foods that are very well known there, like the cheesesteak sandwich and things like Breyer's ice cream and soft pretzels and a lot of things that aren't really healthy for you. And also pretty athletic, too. I played basketball to the collegiate level. And with that level of athleticism, basically I had feelings of invincibility, that I could do whatever I want and eat whatever I want with no consequences. But in my late 20s, I started to have really low energy and couldn't figure it out. So I went to my doctor and they did a complete physical and said I was totally fine. I was a little anemic. Take some iron tablets, you're on your way. So I continued really having low energy and not knowing what's going on. And then I started to also develop pain towards my chest region. And so I thought, maybe I'm having some type of heart problem. So I did end up going to the ER and they did lots and lots of tests. And they found that my heart was totally fine, but they found a mass in my chest region. And from there, they did further tests and scans and actually found out I had stage 4 cancer to the bone at that time. And at that point, I was a young guy. I was late 20s. I knew I had to really start changing my lifestyle. So I started to do a tremendous amount of research, and I kept seeing that, plant-based and different types of foods and vegetables and things are very supportive for one's health. So I started to make massive changes in my lifestyle, including my diet, in going more towards plant-based, because as I really looked at things and really looked at the research, the way I was eating at that time was actually fueling cancer as opposed to helping my body heal.
If Adam wasn't wearing a hat, I'd feel like you guys were looking in the mirror.
Well, it's a similar story. Yeah, it's a similar story to mine, where I went to the ER as well, and they found a tumor on my kidney. The difference between our stories is that mine was not a cancerous tumor and yours was. So that's a very big difference in our story, obviously. But that's what led me to changing my lifestyle as well and getting over. They told me I had the beginning stages of heart disease, so I got over that through the change of my nutrition, mostly as well. So it's interesting that there's so many people out there with similar stories that find similar resolutions or solutions, I would say.
People find so many tumors by accident, right? You have a pain over here, they do a scan and oops, that tumor, or thank goodness, that tumor gets caught on that scan, like you and Adam. So you started to incorporate the plant-based foods into your lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah. So then, I started to look at things and, I started to really look at research, and I wasn't really a computer guy back then, although I was trying to be. And so I was doing a lot of research, and, the internet, at least to me, was kind of a foreign entity. So trying to research that way, trying to research through books and other people. And I started meeting with registered dietitians and naturopaths and other top integrative medical doctors and trying to learn from them what could help me. And I literally felt like when I was on the computer, I was like getting slapped in the face, like, yeah, you got to start eating more plants. And, because there's research, vegan supports this and these types of plants support that. And so I got really heavily into it. And actually for, a while there, I was even doing lots of raw foods as well. And, really when we look at plants, plants are very protective, but they also can support the healing process because they have phytonutrients. So phytonutrients are essentially non-nutritive substances, except they're highly anti-cancer. And certain foods or plants have higher levels than others. And that's where, it gets really interesting because if you look at the research from University of Oregon, if you take a broccoli plant, the mature plant, compared to the broccoli sprout as it's growing, the broccoli sprout has 50 times the phytonutrients than the mature plant. So you're just getting so much more anti-cancer activity in what you're eating. And other sprouts as well have a lot of great anti-cancer activity. And other foods and plants have different types of phytonutrients. So when you hear people talk about eating the rainbow, the different colors are signifying different phytonutrients as well. And then even when you're looking at root vegetables, for example, like turmeric or ginger, these also have very specific phytonutrients and also anti-inflammatory properties, and they can be used in things like juices. And the other nice thing that a lot of the plants, especially the green plants, have is chlorophyll. So chlorophyll is antibacterial, antiviral, anti-inflammatory, and even anti-cancer to an extent. And so different types of foods have higher levels of chlorophyll than others. For example, wheatgrass juice has roughly about, I believe, 55 milligrams per ounce, I believe it is. But when you look at, say, an algae, such as spirulina, it's more than double that. So you can get more chlorophyll to support the body. And that will also support alkalizing. So a lot of people you may have heard of, well, you need to alkalize. Well, especially when one has cancer or you're trying to prevent cancer. And that can be tested too, right at home. You can get little pH strips and you test your first morning urination. And you want to maintain between 6.4 and 7. And when you maintain between 6.4 and 7, you're showing you're maintaining a good level of alkalinity in your body. The reason that that's important, for cancer to spread, and this is right off of PubMed, there was a 2009 landmark study that showed that alkalizing can help to stop and or prevent the metastasis of breast cancer, liver cancer, and lymph node involvement. And we're talking about small changes in your pH can make big changes in your health. So for every 1/10 of a point you move to a more alkaline state, it's a 10-fold increase to the oxygen to the tissues. So where this is important, it's going to give you more energy. It's going to make you feel better. It's going to be anti-cancer because cancer cells don't like a highly oxygenated environment. And with that, alkalinity will also help prevent other issues like osteopenia, osteoporosis, because that acidic state over time will start wearing down the bones as well. And when people, for example, females advance beyond the age of 40, they're much more likely to start developing osteopenia, osteoporosis. But in an anti-cancer sense, cancer cells themselves will produce about 30 times more lactic acid than a normal cell. And that acid is used for a couple ways. One, it's dissolving things in its environment for food, but also it needs that acidic medium in the body to spread and metastasize. So when we can work to create a more alkaline environment, then we can also help to stop the spread of cancer as well. So there's a lot of cool things that plants do to really support us. The other thing that isn't talked about a lot, but is important, is the lack of minerals in the diet today. So minerals are deficient largely because of our soils, and unfortunately, farmers' practices that have been used are not supporting the mineralization of the soil. So, from research in the U.S. and a lot of other countries like Europe, minerals have been depleted by up to about 80% in there. So, plants don't need a whole lot to grow. They just need NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Human beings, we need a lot more than that. And so if it's not in the plant, you're not going to be getting it as you eat it. So I've done tests with clients such as SpectraCell, which is a micronutrient blood test that shows absorption of nutrients at the cellular level. And even people who've eaten pretty well that weren't supplementing, I see a lot of deficiencies, unfortunately. And, so minerals and certain ones can be very protective, but also immune supportive in the body. So, for example, for women, one of the most protective minerals for cancer is selenium. Selenium is very good for our not only immune system, but also our thyroid function. It's needed to basically convert the thyroid hormones. But zinc is also very important, not only for our immune system, but where it becomes important for cancer is it starts to lower our copper levels. So during times of cancer, we don't want lots of copper because copper can promote growth. And so we want to, at least during, if there is an active cancer, we want to prevent and stop growth as much as we can. And sometimes we can do that by, manipulating our foods and manipulating our nutrition to support that. So plants can do a lot, but a lot of cool stuff there. And I can keep going, but I don't know if you want to get into other stuff. I don't want to talk the whole hour on one thing.
No, well, this has been amazing. And I'm like sitting here frantically taking notes. I didn't want to interrupt this amazing stream of not stream of consciousness, but stream of talking. I just want to go back on a couple of things that you said. You mentioned PubMed, and that some of the research that you were stating came right off PubMed. So just for people who don't know what PubMed is a search engine, just like Google, but where it differs from Google is it only allows proper research articles to be part of it. So PubMed.org, it's hard to read some of the stuff on there, but it's not as beautiful with pictures and it's not bloggy, but we know that the information there usually is, as long as the research hasn't been skewed, the information is legit. So that's a really important thing for people to do when they are researching anything, to check PubMed and not just go on Google, because your brother-in-law who you don't like and you wouldn't even trust your kid with your kids to babysit could be writing a blog from anywhere that could just have information. So it's a search engine that you could Google, and Google will then bring you into PubMed. So that's number one. I wanted to ask about the reduction in lactic acid, because the lactic acid will create, you said, a more acidic environment in the body. So is this including the lactic acid that we're making while we're exercising?
Yes. Yeah, that'll be a factor in that. And that's, what's kind of wild is, I've done a lot of training with a lot of top people, and one of the lectures I was in, I remember very specifically the doctor talking about the difference between a professional athlete and a person with cancer. And he said the only difference is one person currently has cancer and the other will at some point. And, what happens is when you push your body beyond its limits, what happens is if you're not supplementing and having a proper diet, You're going to go into one I mentioned earlier was the mineral deficiencies will start to hit the body. And even from Linus Pauling, arguably one of the top doctors ever, did a lot of the research in vitamin C therapy and helping to extend people's life with vitamin C by up to 10 years with advanced cancers. But from his research and vast knowledge, every disease, every ailment comes from a mineral deficiency at some point there. So they're going to lose out on that. Then they're creating all this acid. If they're not doing anything to support their bodies to negate that acid, it's going to start to create major issues. And then just the stress on the body itself from that. So if they don't have things to mediate these to the body, they start to run into problems. And I see this time and time again when I've worked with athletes myself, and have worked with athletes at the professional level too. So yeah, that's where it can be important.
There's so much more great information coming your way, but before we get to that, we wanted to share with you and let you know that if you want a healthy, natural way to fuel your workouts or fire up your brain, Energy Bits are for you. Energy Bits are tiny spirulina algae tabs that are nutritionally dense, a source of mental and physical energy that is all natural and causes no stomach distress. They eliminate fatigue and hunger instantly with no caffeine, sugar, chemicals, gluten, or soy, just pure plant-based nutrition. 1 ingredient, 1 calorie, and 0 net carbs. I use them before workouts or sometimes just as a snack. They make me feel great and give me that extra energy boost I'm sometimes looking for. I also use Recovery Bits, which are tiny chlorella tabs. I use them after workouts or when I'm feeling hungry late at night. Visit energybits.com and order Energy Bits, Recovery Bits, Vitality Bits, or Skinny Bits, and use the promo code PLANTTRAINERS to get 20% off your order at checkout. The link will also be in the show notes just in case you didn't get that all down. Improve your energy, wellness, and waistline all at the same time with Energy Bits. Check out Energy Bits today and feel the difference. Your brain and body will say thank you. And now back to the show.
Okay, so that's amazing. Now let's talk for a minute. I love that you're giving people an actionable step to take that. We're going to the pharmacy today to get those little strips, the pH strips, to take that first urine. Is there such thing as over alkaline?
Yes, there is. Yeah.
Okay,
so
talk to us a little about that.
It's a balance. So some people, they start to get into a really hardcore where, I try to do things the best we can with foods. So, foods may not always be enough, by the way, but I like to start there. So, you can create a more alkaline environment through, vegetables, green vegetables, through juicing vegetables like celery, cucumber. I like to add in sprouts to the juice too, like sunflower sprouts or pea sprouts, just to bump up the nutrition. And you get good complete protein with that and more phytonutrients. But they can also do things like wheatgrass juice, or they can add in algae like a very good spirulina, like living raw spirulina. It's a very pure, unprocessed spirulina. Or chlorella, which is a green algae, or you can add in things like lemon water. Although lemon is an acidic fruit, when it mixes with the saliva, becomes alkaline. And I always tell people, if you're drinking lots of lemon water, just swish your mouth really good with regular water after it, or brush, just because sometimes there may be a little lemon in your mouth and it's not ideal for the enamel. And also lemon's astringent, so it also helps with things like mucoid plaques in the body to help with cleansing, besides a little bit of vitamin C. But these are natural ways that we can start to shift our body to a more alkaline state. If they're not enough, we can look at other things, such as baking soda, but, it would be very small amounts and has to be done measured as well, as far as measuring our pH. Because like we said, we don't want to go too far beyond because that's not ideal either. But when you're in that nice area of 6.4 to 7, from the first morning urination, then your body's maintaining good level of alkalinity.
So we're talking about the increasing the number of phytonutrients, the minerals. We're talking about the benefits of the plants in our nutrition. Earlier mentioned the growth of cancer cells could be coming from some of the foods that we're consuming. So I'm wondering if you could share with our audience some of those foods that contribute to the growth of cancer cells in the body, so people are more aware of what the foods they should be maybe avoiding.
Yeah. So I would say number one probably would be sugar, or foods that have sugar, foods that have high glycemic index or glycemic load. So sugars, and this is right from cancer research journals, minimally, the cancer cell uptakes that sugar 3 to 5 times more than a normal cell. So when you can cut off that sugar supply, you're starting to cut off a lot of the supply of the nutrients to cancer cells, which will slow the growth and in some cases stop it, depending on, the types of cancer. And so cutting out that sugar is going to be a biggie. And beyond that, other foods are not ideal either. So, for example,
hold on, sorry to interrupt you, but sugar, what kind of sugar are we talking about? Because now people might say, oh, but fruit is sugar. So
yes, yeah.
What kind of sugar?
It would be basically all sugars. So sugar you get from the granules, sugar from honey, sugar from molasses, fruit juices. Now, certain fruits can have anti-cancer properties, but we don't want to necessarily go haywire on those and just be eating fruit all day, because that will start to add up too in our sugar content as well. And don't go for the sugar substitutes either, like the synthetics, because in a lot of cases they're worse.
Your body says, oh, sugar, and then it starts to process it, realizes there isn't sugar, and creates all of these cravings.
It creates
as well.
the cravings and even other issues. I mean, for example, aspartame essentially breaks down in the body like a wood alcohol. It's like poison to your body. So why would you want that? You wouldn't want it, for anything, let alone when you have a health challenge. But what could be acceptable are, little bits of stevia, which is a plant from South America, or small amounts of monk fruit. These are extracts that they could add to like a tea or something like that if they need a little bit of sweetness, but you're not going to get any glycemic index or load from that.
So if you believe you're a healthy person, you're feeling great, you don't know that you have cancer in your body, having an apple and some almonds for a snack or a couple of dates here and there, that's not what you're not telling somebody to not eat those kind of things.
Not if you're healthy. Yeah, you can do some sugars. I mean, we don't want to go haywire with it. And depending on the person, just so people are aware, sugars, they don't only feed cancer, they feed molds and candida, other fungi and parasites and things like that. So, it's feeding other things we don't necessarily want in our bodies. And, it's kind of funny, for example, parasites. A lot of people are like, well, I don't travel to Africa, I don't have any parasites. Well, you can get them right here in the United States, or really any other country for that matter.
I suffered with them for over a year.
Yeah. They're, and I've seen people who are like, I don't have them. I get them on a parasite cleanse, and they're believers real quick.
Okay, so other than sugar, you were going to go on to the next.
Yeah, absolutely. So we look at other things. So when we start to do more cooked foods, and especially different types of cooking like barbecues, as we heat foods at higher temperatures, especially if you're using animal proteins, you're bringing in more carcinogenic activity. Dr. Kochkoff, what he found was when we eat cooked foods, we can create in our body what's called leukocytosis, or a raising of the white blood cells. When we eat raw plant foods, we don't get that. And so basically your immune system's getting involved with the digestion process. I would rather my immune system be getting rid of cancer cells and other things that shouldn't be there, as opposed to dealing with my digestion of that cooked food. The other thing is things like nitrates. So nitrates can be in like beer. It can be in processed meats, certain things like canned dairy stuff. And nitrates are a known carcinogen, like hot dogs. These are things that we don't need. Acrylamides are a probable carcinogen that are from like baked things, like baked crackers or breads or things like that. So, these are things we don't necessarily want, but a lot of these things can come, as we heat up animal proteins. For example, an egg. When we fry an egg and you see on that egg, there's a charring on the end, a little black. That's a high carcinogenic activity there, that browning, that blacking. So normally the higher heating, not great. We really have to watch the oils too that we eat. So for example, if you're cooking with olive oil, no bueno, because olive oil will rancify very quickly in that heat. And what you've just done is you've created a rancid oil, which is carcinogenic, and then you're eating it. So, the other factor, what we're kind of getting into now, is we stop making cancer, especially if we're preventing or if we have it. And so we start cutting out these things that I'm talking about, the high cooked foods, the high processed foods, the sugars. Alcohol, of course, is a no-no because that suppresses our immune system and can also affect our gut flora. Our gut, 70% of our immune system. So we need to keep that strong to really support the body. And we can do that in various ways. But once we start cutting out these things that aren't supporting us and then adding in the things that are, we get our body in the right direction to support the healing process and stop really creating that real toxic load. Really, a lot of those processed foods, they add in things that are really nasty, like the artificial colors, the artificial flavors, MSG. These things are really bad for our brain. They're excitotoxins. And they've done studies with people who've had psychological issues or challenges. They literally had to stop the studies when they were using artificial sweeteners because the people were getting so messed up from the study. Ethically, they had to stop it. So, these are things we have to look out for.
I want to ask a question about oil. So we're a no oil family, and as coaches, we're a mostly no oil. I meet people where they are, but trying to get to as little oil as possible. If we go to a restaurant, there's oil, right? We know that.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the amount of fat that the body needs to be able to be in good hormonal balance, or that the brain needs, or something like primrose oil to break up masses? Talk to us a little bit about that, because is fat really needed for most bodies? And if we're eliminating oils, where are we getting that from?
Well, a lot of times we can get fats and oils in our foods. For example, things like avocados or walnuts are nice for omega-3s. We can add in hemp seed or flaxseed or chia seed. Normally we'll have to ground the chia and the flax in order to get more of the oil. And some people may have greater needs than others, depending on, their energy output, depending on their neurological function. But, a lot of the people that I've studied with, they don't like lots of oil, especially when people are healing. For example, Dr. Robert Marshall, he worked with thousands of people. He's a PhD in nutrition and largely took them off of most of the oils. And he said they normally would always heal quicker. And that's where, you see some people going on these ketogenic diets and, really long term, it's not good for the body. And they may get short-term results, but, long-term, not great. Normally in the diet, I would say probably about 10% fat or oil is normally plenty for people, as long as they're getting the right sources to support the omega-3 fat needs and, for the brain health and things, but nervous system. And if they need to supplement, there's certain algae oils that can be good for things like DHA oil, or like I said, the hemp flax, chia. One of the most stable vegetarian oils that I've came across as far as a supplement is Clary sage seed oil. which is a nature sage that's very stable omega. Because when you look at a fish oil that people are supplementing with, when that fish is taken out of the ocean, in 1 hour, those oils are rancid in that fish. So the rancidity potential is very high. And like we said, then it's carcinogenic. So obviously we don't want it for a couple of reasons.
So much great information here. So our audience who could be dealing with cancer, knows someone, because there's so many people on this planet that are dealing with cancer in so many different ways. What kind of healing strategies could we have them implement that might improve their health, or they could share with someone that they know that would be very practical that you could share right now?
Yeah. So, some of the things, when they really want to accelerate, the healing potential, one of the things that I, recommend strongly for my clients to focus on is the mind-body health, because certain traumas, stressors in our lives, these will weaken the immune system. And from some of the people that I've trained with, certain emotional blockages in our life can impede not only the healing process, but maybe even a factor in the cancer itself. So, for example, if you've been stifled a long time in your life, not saying what you want to say, a cancer may manifest in the throat or possibly the mouth. And that's, a very unfortunate thing. But if we have a talk therapy, specifically the one that I like for people that have had cancer, is called recall healing. Recall healing is a type of regression therapy, but it's not one where you're going to sit on the couch your whole life and try to figure something out. It works quickly. Normally in about 5 appointments, one should have a pretty good handle on a situation, which is fast when you're considering something may have happened a long time in their life. And they get to that aha moment to where they're like, okay, that's what was causing the issue. And then they give them techniques and things to help them to overcome that. And that originally developed from Dr. Hammer's work from Germany. And Dr. Hammer worked with many people with very advanced cancer, stage 3, stage 4 cancers. And when they look back upon his clients, essentially over 6,000 of them, over 5 years, 92% of them were still alive and doing well. And that was only from the mind-body therapy, not even all that great stuff we were talking about in modifying the diet, which will also help. Diet is foundational. Mind-body is extremely necessary. And then we can also give people techniques to reduce stress. If you like, I could go through one right now. It'll just take a moment.
Sure.
Very easy. It's based off of Chinese medicine. So we take our left hand, we take the index finger, we take our thumb, gently pinch. We take the right hand, and then we grab gently. You just put that in your lap. And then from there, we close our eyes. We're breathing deep through our nose, out through the mouth. And as we're breathing deep in through the nose, out through the mouth, you're thinking of a place you love to be. You're thinking of all the senses, what you're smelling, what you're tasting, what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're feeling. You do that for 4 minutes. When you do that for 4 minutes, your stress will go down. If you do it before you eat, you're going to digest better. If you do it before you sleep, you're going to sleep better. The reason we do this finger here, it deals with our nervous system in this Chinese medicine, and this deals with our lymphatics, which in my experience in about 100% of the cases is stagnant with cancer. And we use our left hand because the left side of our body teaches the right quicker. And when we do this for 4 minutes, we start to reduce our stress. And so these are, there's a lot of these different techniques, but they can be very helpful. With cancer, stress is a biggie. Environmental toxins are a biggie. They're, arguably, and this is including smoking and alcohol and bad nutrition, they're roughly about 75 to 80% of the reason of cancers. And then, genetic factors are much less, maybe 5 to 10%. But in my opinion, those genes don't have to be expressed if we're doing the right thing.
The genes are being affected by the lifestyle. is, if you have a higher risk with your genes, but you have the same lifestyle as somebody with lower risk, then the smoking, the drinking, the animal products, the toxic behavior, the stress is going to amplify that genetic expression.
Absolutely. And so in, cancer, so we talked about, the mind body is probably one of the most powerful. Talked a little bit about, nutritional support. You can also look at supplementation that will help too, but detoxification becomes very important. Now, detoxification, we have to be very careful, because if we're going through a very challenging treatment like chemo or radiation, we may not be able to do any, or maybe small amounts depending on what's going on and how sick that person is. But it will be needed, because these toxins could have very likely played a part in creating the cancer. And so detoxification will become more important as well. And then lifestyle. We can do very basic things that help us detoxify, like just using a cleaner product, taking out toxicity. For example, if our deodorant has aluminum, not really good. We don't really need more heavy metals in our life, so we can use the ones that don't have that, or toothpaste that have a lot of different fillers and junk and possibly even carcinogenic ingredients. We can use more pure ones that don't. So these are smaller ways we can detoxify our bodies too, just to use cleaner ingredients and cleaner products.
There's Tom, that's so much great information, and our audience is going to love this one and be able to listen back to learn so much from you. And for those of them listening that want to learn more from you, Tom, where can they reach out to you if they want to speak, ask questions, or learn more?
Yeah. So you can reach me a couple ways through like Instagram. Mine is Nurse Tom Beat Cancer. On Facebook as Nurse Tom. If they want to email me, my email is livingrawsolutions@gmail.com. And I'm glad to help people. Personally, I've worked with thousands of people with cancer and other health challenges. So it's what I do. And I like using natural means to support the body in that healing journey.
Well, thank you so much for helping others. It's really why we do this show, and hopefully someone listening will be able to take advantage of your help as well. And we're going to link to everything you just mentioned in the show notes at planttrainers.com.
And in the show notes at planttrainers.com, I know people are going to want to know, what do we eat for chlorella and spirulina and wheatgrass and things like that. So we'll put a couple of links of some of the Plant Trainer trusted resources for that as well. And of course, we're going to include Nurse Tom Beats Cancer, Nurse Tom on Facebook, and livingrawsolutions@gmail.com.
Excellent. Awesome. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Nurse Tom, for being on the Plant Trainers podcast.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for listening to this edition of the Plant Trainers podcast. We want to make sure that you subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, or any other podcasting platform.
We really appreciate the feedback we receive from you. Every time we get a 5-star rating or review on iTunes from one of our fans, it really helps other people find us, just like you did.
Thanks so much to our patrons. To become a patron, visit us at patreon.com/planttrainers. Even supporting us with $1 really makes a difference in the quality of the show.
And don't forget to connect with us on Instagram and Twitter. Our handle is @PlantTrainers. Like Plant Trainers on Facebook, join our newsletter, and check out our website at planttrainers.com for awesome recipes, a list of our services, and of course, our latest podcast.
We encourage you to email your questions to info@planttrainers.com so that we can help you improve your quality of life through nutrition and fitness.
So we hope we've inspired you today. Join us again next time, and have a healthy day. Or is that too corny?
It's a little cheesy.